Hi, it's Grandma, and I'm reading Snow Treasure by Marie McSwigan. And in chapter 3, we found that Victor has come home and he wants to start a defense club at the school, and he has named his nephew Peter as the president of the club. Chapter 4. Get up, Peter, put your clothes on. His father was shaking him. The lights were lit. The clock on the mantel showed it was after midnight. Dress warmly, too. We're going out. Out? Out where? Peter found it hard to understand why he would be going out after midnight. Come on, dress quickly. I'll tell you as we go. Have the Germans come then? He asked. No, of course not. It was only the idea of Uncle Victor's. Oh, you mean the defense club, Peter guessed. Defense club? His father seemed to have forgotten about that, although Peter had told him that very afternoon. Yes, we formed the defense club. Every boy and girl in school is supposed to take orders from me. I'm the president. Oh, Peter, will you hurry? We've no time to talk about things like that. I've come a long distance to get you because we've just had word that the time is getting very short. Peter remembered that his father had gone out after supper that night, as he had one other night, in haste and clearly troubled. Now he had come back for him, Peter. They strapped on their skis at the door in the light from the house. Aren't you going to take your flashlight, Father? Oh, I have it here, but I won't use it unless I have to. Spies, Father? We can't be too careful. The success of what we're doing depends on secrecy. His father had lowered his voice, inviting caution, and Peter spoke softly in reply. Are any of the others from school coming? Will Michael be there? No, Peter, only you. Why is that, Father? You were appointed head of the defense club. You were just telling me. So his father had understood after all. It will be up to you to lead the others where we're going. That's why I'm taking you tonight. Peter's face was grave if there had been anyone to see it in the dark of the deserted town. So, I want you to watch where you're going and remember how to get back if you have to. Later tonight, you'll be taken to a certain part of the woods. I want you to know just where it is and how to get there without me or anyone else showing you. Yes, Father, I'll watch. I think I can remember. Oh, I know you can, Peter. You've spent a lot of your life in the woods. I'm counting on your woods sense to help. They were now outside the town. The trail led north to Rabbit Mountain. In the dark, Peter could see little of the track on which his skis slipped. If you are a skier, what they are doing is they are doing downhills. They are doing cross-country skiing, not downhill skiing. And in cross-country skiing, it's slipping and sliding as you walk in the skis. But the hard tread told him it was a well-traveled path. They climbed with the aid of their poles and now and again would dig their runners into the hard snowbanks to walk up steps sideways. That means that they are just walking up a hill and they're doing it sideways, step by step. But Peter and his father were well used to this kind of travel. They could talk as easily as if they were strolling in the town square. What did Uncle Victor mean about us going on our sleds to the Snake? It was his first real chance to ask his father about the thing that was uppermost in his thoughts. Well, it's like this, Peter. There's a good deal of gold in Norway. More than we'd like to have fall into the hands of an enemy, especially one that might use it to make war on us. So we've decided to guard it with our lives. It isn't the gold itself so much as the fact that it may be used to bring death to the very people to whom it belongs. You're afraid of a German invasion, Father. Well, that's the tale that Victor brought back from Oslo. When you came home, I said he had returned. I knew that only one thing would bring him back at this time, and that was if his country was in danger. But I didn't want you to know about it then. Today, however, other things have happened. Foreign mine layers have been sighted off our coast. There is little use trying to hide something that may have to be faced. They're building air raid shelters all over the South, Peter said. Yes, and they're taking other precautions too. All this week, a Treasury official has been at the bank. He believes that the best way to safeguard our people is to put our wealth beyond the reach of those who would use it to do us harm. Other countries have been sending their gold to the United States for safekeeping. That's what we want to do too, if it can be arranged. Peter could hardly believe this was real life and that it was he and his father who were talking and not two characters in a book or a film. His father was going on, and though his tones were the calm, even ones of his ordinary speaking voice, Peter still had to struggle with a feeling of unreality. There may not be time to safeguard all the gold in the Bank of Norway this way, Mr. Lundstrom spoke confidently. To do so involves a good deal of care. Each of the places where the gold can be hidden has to be inspected by trusted people in the government. The Treasury official came here first of all and had a long list of other places to visit. But even if he doesn't get to the other towns, good care will be taken of the rest of the money because it is a staggering sum. Bullion worth hundreds of millions of kroner. And Uncle Victor will take it on his boat? Peter asked. What we have here, if we can get it to the boat in time. So we are supposed to take it down the mountain on our sleds? If there's an enemy in our country and there is no other way to get it out, you children would never be suspected, but the men wouldn't be allowed to load so much as a pound. But why don't you send it away before the enemy comes? Because the British and French are mining our coast. That means they're laying mines, not digging for gold. Laying miles and miles of explosives in the sea. A ship that would stray in their direction would be blown to bits. So Uncle Victor has to wait until he can find out something about their location. Why, it should be suicide to sail until he does. That's why we have to hide the gold in the cave. Cave? Peter blinked. What cave? Chapter 5. Peter and his father reached a little stretch. Their trail paralleled a railroad siding that ended abruptly in the woods. At one end of the track was a boxcar, and on both sides of it were men and sleds. Peter could see only dark outlines against the snow, for no light was showing. But when he got close, he saw that a lantern was lit, its beams carefully shielded by the backs of the men. One of the backs belonged to Uncle Victor. Hi, Lars, he greeted his brother cheerfully. So you brought Peter, good. He can help, his father said. He can go with Olson. He's ready to leave. You can help him pull his sled, Peter. His father turned to him. Watch where Ole is taking you, Peter. That's the only place you'll want to remember. Yes, father. Peter gave a tug to the rope of the sled. It didn't move. Gee, it's heavy. Oh, heavy? I should say it is. Ole took up the rope. It's 170,000 kroner. Your Uncle Victor would say $40,000. Peter didn't care what Uncle Victor would say. 170,000 kroner in that sack? He couldn't believe it. They followed the railroad siding in the direction he and his father had come. Then they took a trail that led downhill for a distance. That made the going easier, except where it was steep. There they had to hold the sled back to keep it from bumping their legs and knocking them forward down the slope. After a time, they came to a dense part of the woods. Father said we are going to a cave. Peter asked Ole, what cave? Wait, you'll see. Peter was mindful of his father's words to watch where he went and be able to return without help. Now he found he was recognizing landmark after landmark. Here was the rock they called the ship when they played. There was the tree that was rotted through. When he was small, Per Garson told him that trolls lived in that tree, and to this day he thought of it as the troll's tree. So he felt very much at home. Here he was in the woods he'd known since babyhood, but in all his life he'd never heard of a cave before. That's why he was surprised when his father told him he would see one. "We must be going a long way off," he said. "I never heard of a cave anywhere near." Ole grinned. "I guess you didn't," he said. "It's one we made ourselves." "You made it?" "Yes, you'll see." They came to a high wall of snow. There they stopped. Ole led him past the wall and around its end. Now Peter could think of no part of the forest like this, where a wall stood as high as a man, and yet all the things near it were familiar. The ship, the troll's tree. Then he guessed that the wall, like the cave, had been built by men. When they drew the sled around it, he found himself blinking in the lights of lanterns and flashlights. He was in a cave indeed. In it were a dozen men, and there were room for many more. And I'll show you a picture. Well, you can see that it's being made of blocks. What do you think those blocks are? Do you think they're bricks, stone, ice, gold? Well, hopefully we'll find out. "You made it?" Peter was staggered. "Oh, not all," Ole exclaimed. "Behind those stacks is a wall of stone that slopes so you could stand under it in a heavy rain and not get wet." "Oh, I know, Thor's rock, but it used to be open on every side." "Well, we closed it in with blocks of ice." The men in the cave greeted Ole and Peter. Peter knew them all. There were Helga's father and Nansen, the sailmaker, and Dr. Aker and Mr. Anders, the schoolmaster, among them. They were busy as beavers. The ones in the back did not stop for more than a nod to the newcomers. 3 of the others rushed forward to remove the heavy brown sack from Ole's sled. Peter saw them rip it open and noted with surprise that it contained a number of smaller packages, each the size and shape of a building block. These were counted carefully and listed on paper that Mr. Anders carried. 72, 73, 74. Dr. Aker was counting out loud. Later, the doctor reached 1,300. 1,300 of those bricks? Peter asked Ole. "Yes, and each of them contains 18.5 pounds of gold bullion, over 20,000 kroner. "It's a regular Aladdin's cave you're in," Nansen the sailmaker spoke. "There aren't many boys who've been in a Rome with more than 24,000 pounds of gold." After a time, some of the men Peter had seen at the railroad siding began coming in. With each arrival, the same thing happened. The men in the cave would unload the sled, slit open the sack, and begin counting and stacking the smaller packages it contained. Over them all hovered Mr. Anders with his paper and pencil. "It's coming near the end," he smiled happily. "Yes, praise all," Ole wiped his forehead. "Tonight'll see the last." Nansen looked around from the wall he was making of the brick-sized packages. "Here comes the rest of it," someone said as Uncle Victor and Peter's father came in together. "Every last pound's been removed." "Does that make it come out all right, Anders?" Mr. Lundstrom asked. The schoolmaster made a swift calculations. He looked at the sheets in his hand and counted the sleds to be unloaded. 87, 88. "What have you there, Doctor?" he asked his helper. They quickly added the figures. "Well, Mr. Lundstrom," he announced proudly, "it's exactly right. It's all here." So, I'm not sure what those bricks were, if these were the gold, because we can see that there's a man here with notes, like he's taking count. So I think this is the gold bullion that they are stacking up. Well, do you think that's going to be a safe place for them to keep this if the Germans invade? And how do the kids figure in with the sleds? If it's so heavy, how are the kids going to, are they going to be laying on it? Is the gold going to be in their pants? I mean, how are they going to do this? Well, I guess we'll find out in the next chapter or two. Bye-bye.